The next morning, Rafi woke up early. The sun was bright and birds were singing outside his window, but his mind was already heavy with thoughts. Today, he had to visit the HOA office with the survey report. He wanted to end the issue once and for all. He printed the report and placed it neatly in a folder. Mr. Singh had included maps, photos, and official town records. The proof was clear. Still, Rafi knew that facing the HOA would not be easy, especially with Karen involved. When he reached the small HOA office near the park, he saw a few people standing outside. They were neighbors, some talking in low voices, others pretending not to notice him. It was clear that news had spread fast. People loved gossip, especially when it involved Karen. Inside, the meeting room was simple. There was a long table, a few chairs, and a big notice board with community rules. 3 members of the HOA sat behind the table, including the chairperson, Mrs. Patel, a calm and fair woman who had lived in Green Hill for more than 10 years. Karen was already there, sitting with her arms crossed and a tight smile on her face. She looked confident, as if she expected the meeting to go her way. Mrs. Patel nodded to Rafi. "Please have a seat, Mr. Rafi. We will listen to both sides before making any decision." Karen spoke first. "This whole thing is simple. His fence crosses my boundary. He refuses to move it. I filed a report and I want action taken." Rafi waited patiently until Mrs. Patel turned to him. "Mr. Rafi, what do you have to say?" He opened his folder and placed the report on the table. "I hired a licensed surveyor. His report shows that my fence is within my boundary. In fact, part of Karen's house is built on my land." The room went quiet. One of the members, Mr. Lee, raised his eyebrows. "That is a serious claim. Do you have proof?" "Yes," Rafi said, handing over the documents. "The surveyor used town maps and original property markers. Everything matches official records." Mrs. Patel and the others began studying the papers. Karen tried to look calm, but her hands were shaking slightly. "This is ridiculous," Karen said suddenly. "I have lived there for 8 years. My house was approved by the HOA. There's no way it's on his land." Mrs. Patel looked at her kindly. "Karen, we will check the documents before judging. If what Mr. Rafi says is true, we need to handle this carefully." After reading the report, Mrs. Patel sighed. "The survey seems legitimate. The measurements are clear. Karen, part of your home does indeed fall over Mr. Rafi's property line." Karen's eyes widened. "That can't be right. The builder must have made a mistake." Mr. Lee nodded. "Maybe, but the mistake doesn't change the facts. Property lines are fixed. If his fence is fine, the complaint should be dismissed." Karen looked angry now. "So you are just going to take his side? He probably paid that surveyor to fake the report." Mrs. Patel frowned. "Karen, please be respectful. This report is backed by official records. Unless you bring your own survey, we must accept it as accurate." Rafi stayed quiet. He didn't want to argue or add fuel to the fire. After a few more discussions, Mrs. Patel made her decision. "The HOA will not fine Mr. Rafi. The fence is legal. Karen, we advise you to contact the town office and resolve your property issue through the correct channels. This matter is now closed." Karen's face turned red. She gathered her things and walked out without saying another word. When the meeting ended, Mrs. Patel smiled gently at Rafi. "You handled this with patience. I know this situation was stressful, but you did the right thing by following the law." "Thank you," Rafi said. "I just wanted peace. I never wanted a fight." As he stepped outside, several neighbors were waiting. Farid was among them. He grinned and said, "I heard everything. You did well, my friend." Karen looked like she swallowed a lemon. Rafi laughed softly. "I only told the truth, that's enough for me." Over the next few days, things around Green Hill felt different. People who once avoided Rafi now greeted him with friendly smiles. Many had been annoyed by Karen's constant interference, and now they saw someone finally stand up to her. Karen, however, stayed quiet. Her garden light stayed off, and she no longer walked around the neighborhood with her clipboard. But Rafi noticed her watching from her window whenever he worked in his yard. One afternoon, as he was watering his plants, she came out. Her expression was calm but cold. "You think you've won?" she said. "But this isn't over. I talked to the builder and he said there could be an error in the old maps." Rafi replied politely, "You are free to check. I'll cooperate with anything official." She didn't respond and went back inside. A week later, Rafi received a letter from the town office. Karen had filed a formal complaint asking for a resurvey. The letter said that a town inspector would visit both properties to verify the situation. Rafi sighed. He didn't want more trouble, but he knew he couldn't ignore it. He called Mr. Singh again to let him know. Mr. Singh said, "Don't worry. If they check properly, they'll find the same result. You have nothing to fear." The day of the inspection, 2 officials arrived with a measuring tool and a digital map. They were polite and professional. Karen followed them closely, trying to explain her side before they even started. Rafi stood quietly, answering their questions when asked. After an hour of checking and comparing coordinates, the officials looked at each other. One of them said, "There's no mistake, the private survey was accurate. Mrs. Karen, your property does overlap Mr. Rafi's by almost 3 feet. Karen looked shocked. "So what happens now?" The official replied, "You'll need to contact a property lawyer. Either you can buy that part of land from Mr. Rafi, or you'll have to remove any structure built over it. The choice is yours." When they left, Karen stared at the ground. For once, she had no words. Fareed came by later that evening, his eyes bright with excitement. "So it's official again. She can't escape the truth." Rafi smiled a little. "Yes, but I don't want revenge, I just want peace." "That's what makes you different," Fareed said. "She would have tried to ruin anyone who crossed her, but you stayed calm." That night, Rafi sat in his backyard under the stars. The fence looked peaceful in the dim light. It was strange how something so simple had caused so much chaos. But deep inside, he knew that the problem was not about a fence or land. It was about control. Karen liked power, and losing it made her angry. A few days later, Rafi got another letter, this time from Karen herself. It was short and written in neat handwriting. She said she wanted to discuss a possible agreement. Rafi was surprised. He wondered if she was finally ready to make peace or if she had another plan in mind. He folded the letter and placed it on the table. Whatever happened next, he decided he would stay calm and handle it wisely. The battle over the fence had changed him. He was no longer afraid of HOA rules or loud voices. He had learned that truth and patience were stronger than anger. As the evening wind blew gently through the trees, Rafi smiled. The story that began with a fence was now about something much bigger. It was about standing firm for what was right, even when others tried to push him down. And though he didn't know what Karen planned next, Rafi was ready for it. The morning sun was bright when Rafi heard a soft knock on his door. He opened it and found Karen standing outside. She looked different this time. Her confident posture was gone and her eyes seemed tired. She was holding a folder and a small notebook. "Good morning," she said, trying to sound polite. "Can we talk for a minute?" Rafi nodded. "Sure, please come in." They sat at the small table near the window. Karen looked around as if she had never noticed how peaceful Rafi's house was. There were books on one shelf and potted plants near the door. It felt warm and simple. "I didn't expect this letter from you," Rafi said calmly. "What do you want to discuss?" Karen took a deep breath. "I know things have been tense between us. I don't want to fight anymore. I talked to my lawyer and he told me that part of my house really is on your land. He said I either have to buy that piece from you or remove part of my house. I can't afford to rebuild my house, so I want to buy that land." Rafi stayed quiet for a moment. He was surprised by her honest tone. "How much land are we talking about?" he asked. Karen opened her notebook. 3 feet wide and about 15 feet long. It's a small piece, but it's important for my house. I'll pay the fair price." Rafi looked out the window. The land she was talking about was just a small strip beside the fence. It didn't really matter to him. Still, part of him wondered if this sudden kindness was real. "All right," he said finally. "I'll think about it. I don't want to make any decision in a hurry." Karen nodded quickly. "Of course. Take your time. I just want peace between us." I don't want the HOA or the town involved anymore." After she left, Rafi sat quietly for a while. It felt strange. The same woman who had shouted at him weeks ago now wanted to buy peace. He called Farid later and told him what happened. Farid laughed softly. "Be careful. Karen never gives up power that easily. Maybe she wants to look good in front of the HOA." Rafi smiled. "I thought the same. But I'll still listen. If she truly wants to settle this, I'll be fair." The next day, Rafi went to the town office to ask about the legal process. The officer explained that he could sell a small portion through a boundary adjustment, but it had to be approved officially. Rafi decided to wait and think before doing anything. A few days later, Karen invited him to her house to discuss the offer again. When he arrived, he noticed her garden was neat, and the house looked recently cleaned. She greeted him with tea and biscuits, something he never expected from her. "Thank you for coming," she said. "I talked to a local agent. He said that land like yours sells for about $20 per square foot. I'm ready to pay that rate." Rafi sipped his tea. "That sounds fair. But I'll only agree if everything is done legally through the town office." "Of course," she said quickly. "I'll let my lawyer prepare the papers." As they talked, Rafi noticed something unusual. Karen kept avoiding eye contact when he mentioned paperwork. She was smiling too much and her voice sounded rehearsed. He decided not to show his suspicion. When he got home, he looked at his fence and thought about the situation. He didn't trust Karen completely. He remembered how she had lied before about his fence crossing her land. So he decided to take precautions. He called Mr. Singh again and asked him to witness any future agreement. Mr. Singh agreed. "That's a wise choice. Never trust verbal promises. Always keep records." 2 days later, Karen came again with documents in her hand. "Here are the papers," she said. "Just sign here and we can take them to the office." Rafi looked at the papers carefully. He wasn't a lawyer, but something looked odd. The paper didn't mention boundary adjustment anywhere. Instead, it said property transfer, and the area mentioned was much larger than 3 feet. "Karen," he said slowly, "this says I'm transferring 1/10 of my property, not a small strip." "That's a big difference," Karen blinked. "Oh, that must be a mistake. The lawyer must have written it wrong. I'll fix it." Rafi looked straight at her. "Or maybe you thought I wouldn't read it." Her face turned red. "How dare you say that?" "I'm trying to make peace." "I'm fine with peace," Rafi said calmly. "But peace doesn't mean giving up what's mine." Karen's expression hardened. "You're making a big mistake. If you don't sell it, I'll take it to court." Rafi stood up. "You're free to do that. But you'll lose. The documents and the survey prove the truth." She glared at him and left without another word. That evening, Rafi visited Farid again. He showed him the papers. Farid read them and shook his head. "She tried to trick you. This is not about land. It's about pride. She wants to prove she can still control things." Rafi smiled slightly. "At least now I know what she really wanted." A week later, a letter arrived from Karen's lawyer. She had officially filed a property dispute in the local court. Rafi was not surprised, but he felt tired. He didn't like fighting, but he knew he couldn't back down now. He contacted a lawyer named Mr. Haroon, who was known for being calm and honest. Rafi explained everything from the beginning. Mr. Haroon listened carefully and said, "Don't worry. You have every piece of proof you need. We'll handle this professionally." The first court hearing was simple. The judge asked both sides to submit their documents. Karen's lawyer argued that the Old Town records might be inaccurate and that the builder's map should be trusted instead. Rafi's lawyer calmly presented the official survey, town records, and Mr. Singh's statement. The judge looked through everything. "Until proven otherwise," he said, "the official town boundary stands. Mrs. Karen, your argument is weak without evidence." Karen's lawyer tried to object, but the judge silenced him. "I'll allow another hearing in 2 weeks. Bring concrete proof if you have any." Outside the courtroom, Karen looked furious. "You think you've won again?" she hissed. "You won't get away with this." Rafi didn't reply. He simply walked away. Over the next 2 weeks, rumors spread across the neighborhood. Some people said Karen was selling her house. Others said she was trying to find someone in the HOA to support her. Rafi ignored the gossip and focused on his work. One afternoon, Mr. Singh visited him again. "I checked something interesting," he said. Karen's builder used an old private survey map that was never approved by the town. "That's why her house is misplaced." Rafi smiled. "That explains everything." When the second court hearing came, Mr. Singh presented this information. The judge read it carefully and looked at Karen. It seems your house was built using the wrong map. This is not Mr. Rafi's fault. In fact, you may be liable for encroachment. Karen looked shocked. Her lawyer whispered something, but she looked defeated. The judge gave her 30 days to fix the problem legally or face a fine. After the hearing, Karen walked past Rafi without saying a word. Her face showed more sadness than anger this time. Farid met Rafi later and said, "Looks like she finally understands she can't control everything." Rafi nodded. Maybe now she'll stop fighting and start living peacefully. That night, Rafi sat on his porch, feeling calm. The fence stood where it always had, strong and simple. The moonlight touched the wood softly and the air was cool. He felt grateful that he had stayed patient through it all. He didn't know what Karen would do next, but he knew one thing for sure. Truth always finds its way, no matter how much someone tries to hide it. The court's decision spread across the Green Hill neighborhood faster than wildfire. By the next morning, everyone seemed to know that Karen had lost the case. Some neighbors whispered about it on their morning walks, while others discussed it during evening strolls. People had seen Karen's confident attitude for years, but now they watched her quietly avoid eye contact with everyone. Rafi tried not to think much about it. He didn't enjoy seeing anyone embarrassed, even if that person had caused him trouble. He focused on his garden and daily routine. The fence stood proudly as a reminder that patience and truth could win over arrogance. A week later, the HOA announced a special meeting. Mrs. Patel sent a letter to every house saying that important community matters would be discussed. Rafi guessed the meeting would involve Karen, but he didn't plan to speak unless asked. When the evening came, Rafi walked to the community hall. Almost every homeowner was there. The hall was full of quiet whispers until Mrs. Patel stood up and asked for silence. "Thank you, everyone, for coming," she said. "We have some serious matters to address today. The court case involving 2 of our members has affected the reputation of Green Hill. We need to make sure such conflicts never happen again." All eyes turned toward Karen, who sat in the front row. Her face looked pale and she kept staring at the floor. Mrs. Patel continued, "The HOA respects the law, and according to the court's decision, Mr. Rafi's property boundaries are correct. The fence will remain where it is. Mrs. Karen's house overlaps his land. We expect both parties to act responsibly." Karen didn't look up. Then Mrs. Patel said something unexpected. "Several members have raised concerns about the way HOA complaints were handled. There have been reports that Karen used her position to target neighbors unfairly. Because of this, the committee has decided to suspend her from the HOA for 6 months. A quiet gasp went through the room. Some people exchanged surprised looks while others nodded slightly. Karen finally raised her head. "You can't do that. I served this community for years. I just wanted everyone to follow the rules," Mrs. Patel replied calmly. "And we appreciate your service, but fairness is part of our rules too. This decision is final." Karen stood up, her voice trembling. "You're all against me. None of you understand how much work I've done." Before anyone could respond, she grabbed her bag and walked out of the hall. The door closed behind her with a soft thud. The meeting continued, but Rafi's mind wandered. He didn't feel happy or victorious. He only felt sorry that things had turned so bitter. When the meeting ended, several neighbors came to him and said kind words. "You handled everything so well, Rafi," one woman said. "You stayed calm through all of this." Farid added, "You've become a bit of a hero around here. People are finally seeing that kindness and patience can defeat arrogance." Rafi smiled humbly. "I just wanted peace. I hope Karen finds peace too." Days passed quietly after that. Karen's house looked lonely. Her garden began to lose its color because she no longer cared for it. The once bright flowers wilted and the grass grew long. The sound of her music, which used to play every morning, was gone. One afternoon, Rafi saw a moving truck parked outside her house. 2 men were loading boxes. Karen stood by the door giving directions. Rafi hesitated but finally walked over. "Are you moving?" he asked softly. Karen looked at him for a moment before nodding.
"Yes, I decided to sell the house."
"I can't stay here anymore. Too many people are talking about me." Rafi paused. "I didn't want things to end this way. I only wanted what was fair." "I know," she said quietly. "I made mistakes. I thought I could control everything, but now I see I was wrong." The lawyer said selling the house is the easiest way to fix the boundary issue. "Whoever buys it can handle the paperwork." Rafi nodded. That's probably the best choice, Karen sighed. You're lucky, Rafi. People like you. You didn't even have to fight loudly to win. I wish I could be that calm. Rafi smiled kindly. It's never too late to change. Maybe this is your chance to start fresh. For the first time, Karen smiled a little, though it was faint and sad. Maybe you're right. The next week, the for sale sign appeared in her yard. Curious neighbors slowed down to read it as they passed. Within 2 weeks, a young couple visited the house several times, and soon the deal was done. Karen's moving day came quietly. Only a few people came to watch. Before she left, she walked to Rafi's fence and placed a small potted plant on the ground beside it. It was a bright red flower, freshly watered. Rafi stepped out and saw her. "What's this for?" he asked. "It's my way of saying sorry," she said, "for all the trouble I caused." "I hope your garden keeps growing," Rafi smiled. "Thank you, Karen. I wish you a better future." She nodded, and with that, she got into her car and drove away. The street felt strangely quiet after that. Over the next few months, peace returned to Green Hill. The new couple who moved into Karen's old house were friendly and cheerful. They joined the community activities, and their laughter often filled the air. The HOA became more cooperative under Mrs. Patel's leadership. Rafi became known as someone everyone could trust. Neighbors often came to him for advice about small disputes or house repairs. He never acted like a leader, but people respected him for his calm and honest nature. One evening, as he and Farid sat in the garden drinking tea, Farid said, "You know, Rafi, this whole story has become something people will remember for a long time. They'll say, 'This is the man who stood up for himself without shouting.'" Rafi chuckled. "I don't want fame. I just want peace and a quiet life," Farid smiled. "That's what makes you special." As the months went by, Rafi noticed something else. The neighborhood itself seemed to change. People were kinder to each other. They greeted one another more often. The fear of HOA complaints had faded. It was as if the whole place had taken a deep breath of relief. One morning, Rafi received a letter in the mail. It was from Karen. She had written from another town where she had moved into a smaller home. The letter said she had started volunteering at a community garden and was learning to work with people instead of against them. She wrote, "I wanted to thank you, Rafi. You showed me that peace is stronger than control. I'm happier now. I hope your garden is full of flowers." Rafi read the letter twice, then smiled. He placed it on the shelf beside the potted red flower she had left behind, which had grown larger and brighter since she left. That evening, as the sun set behind the trees, Rafi looked around his garden. The air smelled of fresh earth and blooming flowers. The fence that once caused so much trouble now stood as a symbol of patience and truth. Farid called out from the gate, "Tea or coffee today?" "Tea," Rafi replied with a smile. "It's a good day for tea." They sat together, watching children play on the street and listening to the calm sounds of Green Hill. For the first time in a long while, Rafi felt that everything was truly peaceful. He thought about how strange life could be. A simple fence had started a storm, but in the end it had brought lessons that changed people forever. Months passed since Karen had left Green Hill. Her house had been sold to a young couple named Amir and Sarah. They were friendly and full of energy. They painted the house bright white and planted new flowers in the front yard. Every morning, the smell of fresh bread and coffee came from their kitchen. The house that once carried tension now looked cheerful and full of life. Rafi's garden was in full bloom too. The red flower Karen had left as an apology had grown taller, standing beside the fence like a sign of peace. Rafi often watered it first before tending to his other plants. He found a strange comfort in watching it grow. It reminded him that even people who make mistakes can change for the better. Green Hill had changed a lot. The atmosphere was lighter. Neighbors greeted each other with smiles instead of suspicion. The HOA meetings became friendly gatherings rather than arguments. Mrs. Patel often mentioned Rafi as an example of calm leadership. People respected him not because he had fought hard, but because he had stayed honest when it mattered most. One sunny morning, Mrs. Patel came to visit Rafi. She brought a folder with her and a small box wrapped in golden paper. She smiled warmly and said, "Rafi, the HOA has decided to give you something special. You have become a symbol of peace in this neighborhood. We wanted to thank you." Rafi looked surprised. "You didn't have to do that. I only stood for what was right." Mrs. Patel laughed softly. That's exactly why you deserve it. She opened the folder and showed him a certificate that read, Community Peace Award, for bringing fairness and harmony to Green Hill. Rafi smiled shyly as she handed it to him. Then she gave him the small golden box. Inside was a beautiful silver key with the words Key to Green Hill engraved on it. Rafi looked at the key and said, This is too much. I am just a simple man. Mrs. Patel shook her head. Sometimes simple people do the most important things. You reminded us all to stay calm and trust the truth. After she left, Rafi placed the key and certificate on a shelf in his living room. He felt proud, but in a quiet way. He didn't need attention or praise. What made him happy was knowing that the community had learned something valuable from the storm that had once surrounded his fence. As days went by, Amir and Sarah often visited Rafi's house. They asked him for gardening tips, and sometimes they brought food. Rafi enjoyed their company. He taught them how to plant vegetables and how to make compost from dry leaves. In return, Sarah baked him bread and Amir helped repair his wooden gate. One evening, as they sat together drinking tea, Amir said, We heard a lot about what happened before we came here. People told us how patient you were. It's rare to find someone who stays calm when the whole world seems against them. Rafi smiled gently. Patience is not weakness. It's strength. Sometimes silence wins more battles than words. Sarah nodded. We're lucky to have a neighbor like you. The sky was glowing with orange and pink as the sun set behind the trees. Birds flew back to their nests and the soft wind carried the smell of jasmine from Rafi's garden. It felt peaceful, as if the land itself was healing. But one thing still stayed in Rafi's mind, the memory of Karen. He often wondered how she was doing. She had sent him one letter months ago saying she was happier and had joined a community garden in another town. He hoped she had found peace. Then one day a white envelope arrived in his mailbox. It had Karen's handwriting on it. Inside there was a letter and a small photograph. The photo showed Karen smiling in a garden full of colorful flowers. She looked different, calm, free, and content. The letter said, Dear Rafi, I hope you are well. My new home is smaller, but my heart feels lighter. I started helping in a garden project here. I've learned a lot about patience and teamwork. The people are kind and they remind me of you. I realize that fences don't just separate land. They can also teach people about respect and boundaries. Thank you for showing me that lesson. If you ever visit this town, I'd love to show you the garden we built. With respect and gratitude, Karen Rafi read the letter twice, then smiled warmly. He placed the photo next to the red flower on the shelf. He felt truly happy knowing that even Karen had found peace at last. That evening, Farid came over with his usual cheerful energy. He brought snacks and said, So the hero of Green Hill is still being remembered? Rafi laughed softly. No hero here, just a man who likes his garden. Farid chuckled. You know, Rafi, this story will be told for years. People will say, there once was a man whose fence taught everyone a lesson. Rafi smiled. If it teaches people to be kind, then that's enough for me. Later that night, a soft rain began to fall. Rafi stepped outside with an umbrella and walked around his garden. The water made the flowers shine under the dim light. He stood near the fence and looked at the red flower again. The raindrops glistened on its petals and it seemed to glow with life. He whispered to himself, Peace always finds a way. The next morning, Green Hill looked fresh and clean after the rain. Children played on the street, chasing puddles and laughing. The air was full of joy and life. The once divided neighborhood had become a place of unity. Mrs. Patel later announced a new community project, a shared garden where every family could grow plants together. Rafi was asked to lead it. At first he hesitated, but when he saw how excited everyone was, he agreed. The garden project became a beautiful success. Families planted vegetables, flowers, and fruit trees. Every weekend they gathered there to water plants and share stories. Rafi guided them with gentle patience, teaching children how to care for seedlings. The red flower from his fence became the symbol of the project. They even made a small wooden sign beside it that read, From Conflict to Growth. One afternoon, as Rafi watched children play near the shared garden, he realized how much had changed. The same people who once argued about small things were now laughing together. The sound of joy filled the air. Farid came beside him and said, See what you started? You planted more than flowers here, my friend. You planted peace. Rafi looked at him and smiled. Maybe that's what life is about. Planting peace wherever we can. As the sun set once again over Green Hill, the golden light touched every roof, every tree, and every smile. The fence that had once caused trouble now stood as a border between old pain and new hope. Rafi sat in his garden chair, sipping his tea, listening to the laughter of families, and watching the gentle sway of the red flower in the evening breeze. He knew deep inside that the greatest victory was not winning the case or proving ownership. It was transforming anger into understanding and turning conflict into harmony. The story of the fence had ended, but the story of peace had just begun. The afternoon sun shone brightly over the glass towers of Dubai. Inside the luxurious Skyline restaurant, everything gleamed: silver trays, white tablecloths, and gold-edged plates. The staff moved quickly but quietly, trained to serve without drawing too much attention. Among them was a young waitress named Maya, who had joined the restaurant only 2 months ago. Maya was from Kenya. She had come to Dubai with dreams of saving money for her younger brother's education. Life had not been easy for her, but she carried herself with calm dignity. She spoke little, always polite, always ready to help. The restaurant's manager, Mr. Rahim, often praised her for her discipline and gentle smile. That day, the restaurant was preparing for an important guest, Mr. Zayed, a powerful Arab CEO known for his wealth and pride. He owned several companies and had a reputation for being strict and impatient. Everyone in the restaurant knew that when he visited, everything had to be perfect. Mr. Rahim called the team together before the lunch service. "Listen carefully," he said in a serious tone. "Mr. Zayed and his team are coming at 1 o'clock. They are very important clients. There must be no mistakes." Maya nodded along with the others. She made sure her uniform was spotless and her tray steady. She felt a bit nervous, but she told herself she could handle it. After all, she had served difficult customers before. At exactly 1 o'clock, the doors opened. 3 men in fine suits entered. The first one, tall and confident, was Mr. Zayed. His watch looked more expensive than most people's cars. He walked with the air of someone who expected everything to be done his way. Behind him came his assistant and a business partner. The restaurant fell quiet for a moment as everyone watched him take a seat at the corner table with a view of the city. Mr. Rahim rushed forward to greet him with a smile. "Welcome, sir. We are honored to have you here." Zayed gave a small nod and looked around. "I hope your service is better than last time," he said. "Of course, sir," Mr. Rahim replied, trying to keep his voice steady. "We have our best staff ready for you." He turned to Maya and whispered, "You will take care of this table. Do not make any mistake." Maya's heart beat faster, but she took a deep breath and walked toward the table with confidence. "Good afternoon, sir," she said kindly. "May I take your order?" Zayed did not even look up at her. He was talking on his phone in Arabic. When he finally put the phone down, he looked at Maya and frowned. "You again? Weren't you the one who dropped the glass last time?" Maya shook her head gently. "No, sir. That was another waitress." He gave her a cold look. "They all look the same to me," he said. His assistant looked uncomfortable, but Zayed did not notice. Maya kept her smile. "Would you like to start with water or juice, sir?" "Water," he said shortly. "And be quick. I don't have time for slow people." She turned and walked away calmly, even though her hands trembled a little. She had learned long ago that some people spoke harshly when they thought they were powerful. She would not let it break her spirit. When she returned with the water, Zayed was still talking to his partner in Arabic. Maya quietly placed the glasses on the table. But as she did, one of the glasses slipped slightly from her tray, landing on the table with a small splash. It was not much, just a few drops of water spilled on the tablecloth. But Zayed's eyes narrowed instantly. "Are you stupid?" he snapped loudly. "Can't you even serve water properly?" The sound of his voice carried across the restaurant. Other guests turned to look. Maya froze for a second. Her cheeks felt hot, and her hands tightened around the tray. Mr. Rahim quickly stepped forward, bowing slightly. "I'm so sorry, sir. It will not happen again." Zayed pointed at Maya. "Replace her." I don't want to be served by someone who can't even balance a glass. This is what happens when you hire untrained people." The words cut deep, but Maya stayed silent. She lowered her eyes, took the tray, and quietly walked away. Inside, she felt a mix of anger and sadness. She had worked hard every single day, and still, she was treated like she was less. In the kitchen, the other waiters whispered in sympathy. One of them, Lena, touched her arm. "Don't take it to heart, Maya. He talks like that to everyone." Maya gave a weak smile. "It's all right," she said softly. "I just wish people would see us as humans, not as servants." A few minutes later, the chef asked Maya to bring the appetizers to Zayed's table. Mr. Rahim hesitated but nodded. "Be careful this time," he said. Maya straightened her shoulders. She refused to let fear control her. She carried the tray with steady hands and returned to the table. Zayed and his team were deep in conversation. They were speaking Arabic, discussing business deals, unaware that she could understand every word. Zayed's partner said, "She looks quiet, but she's careful. Not like some staff I've seen." Zayed scoffed. "Careful? She's clumsy and slow. You saw it yourself. People like her don't belong in fine places." Maya heard every word. She felt the sting of insult again, but this time something inside her decided she would not stay silent forever. When she placed the dishes on the table, Zayed suddenly said something again in Arabic. Maybe if she could understand our language, she would do her job better. He laughed, thinking she could not understand a word. At that moment, Maya looked up, her eyes calm but strong. "Would you like me to explain the menu to you in Arabic, sir?" she said clearly, in perfect Arabic. The table went silent. Zayed froze, his hand stopping midway as he lifted his fork. His assistant looked surprised. His business partner almost smiled. Maya continued, her voice steady and polite. "The first dish is a mix of chickpeas and sesame called hummus. The second is grilled lamb with Arabic spices served with rice and fresh salad. And the last one is the chef's special dessert, made with honey and nuts." Her accent was flawless, her words smooth and respectful. For a moment, no one spoke. Then Zayed's partner chuckled softly. "That was impressive," he said. Zayed cleared his throat and looked at her again, this time with a different expression. There was surprise, maybe even a bit of shame. Maya bowed slightly. "Is there anything else you would like, sir?" Zayed hesitated. "No," he said after a pause. "That will be all." She nodded and walked away quietly. Inside, she felt a wave of strength and peace. She had not shouted or argued, but she had spoken in a way that demanded respect. In the corner, Mr. Rahim watched everything. He felt proud. The other waiters whispered excitedly among themselves. They had just seen something powerful. Quiet courage that spoke louder than anger. As Maya returned to the kitchen, she smiled to herself. She knew the day was far from over, but she had learned something important. No matter where she worked or who tried to bring her down, her dignity and knowledge would always be her true power.